Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Manish Shrestha, working as Assistant Professor at Haryana School of Business, GJ University of Science and Technology, Hisar. Today, we are going to discuss about the topic Behavioral Dimension of Compensation Management. Before starting the discussion, let's have a look at the contents. The discussion will start with introduction, followed by impact of compensation on employee, consequences of dissatisfaction with compensation, motivational issues in compensation, role of motivation in employee compensation. At the end, we will have the summary. By the end of this module, students will be able to understand the concept of behavior, explain the impact of compensation on employee behavior, explain the consequences of dissatisfaction of employees, and understand the concept of motivation. Effective management of compensation is one of the greatest concerns with any organization. This helps the organization to have a competitive advantage in the market. As has been discussed in previous sections, the compensation is influenced by a gamut of factors that may be internal as well as external to the organization. The internal factors may be controllable to some extent, but external ones are hardly manageable. Also, the impact of compensation on employees depends on the behavior or psychology of the employee. The behavior aspects related to compensation are those that are related to motivation, organizational justice, and job satisfaction. The compensation of an employee has two types of impacts on his behaviors or psychology. The first one is employee turnover. It is measure of the time span an employee stays with an organization and how often the employer has to replace them. Whenever an employee leaves the organization, it is called turnover or separation. Organizations wish to look at industry averages to maintain a reasonable level of employee turnover. A 0% turnover is also a cause of disappointment, just as high turnover is disheartening. A high turnover means difficulties related to filling the position, trainings involved, and other specific costs like that of recruiter fees or advertisements, etc. On the other hand, zero turnover means no inflow of new talent and stagnation within the organization. The cost of these turnovers are also varied and not always very direct. In some cases, the cost of turnovers are realized and felt for years after the employee has left. Theoretically, the ability of an employee to actually leave a job depends on the circumstances whether he or she can leave the job. For example, female employee plans to leave a job, but in the meantime she happens to be on the family way. So, she postpones her plans to quit so that she can avail all maternity benefits. Therefore, though she intends to quit, her circumstances disallow her to do so. The second type of impact is employee satisfaction. It means feelings of the employee towards his job, his likes and dislikes related to his job and organization, and his motivation level. This satisfaction is majorly governed by the composition or the reward he receives for work done. In other words, employee satisfaction is another form of job satisfaction. Traditionally, prior to Herzberg's view, job satisfaction was seen as unidirectional concept, that is high job dissatisfaction to high job satisfaction. The explanation to this view was that the employee is satisfied due to a particular job condition, removal of it cause dissatisfaction. Similarly, if an employee is dissatisfied with a particular job condition, the removal of it would cause job satisfaction. Herzberg, however, had a different view. He alleged that job satisfaction is two-directional and not unidirectional. In his views, high or low job satisfaction is determined by the motivators or satisfiers. The personal recognition is actually a very strong motivator. If an individual successfully performs a task which he considered difficult, he is highly satisfied and hence motivated. To add on to this pleasure is a genuine word of appreciation from the right person at the right time that can prove to be a great reward. Thus, job satisfaction depends upon intrinsic rewards that comes by achieving a task, extrinsic reward like pay hike, appreciation from the boss and peers promotion, recognition as per the job level, empowerment and participation. Compensation plays an important role as an extrinsic motivator to an employee. Employees happy with the compensation that they receive always prove to be high contributors towards organizational goals. The retention rate of such employees is also very high. Therefore, compensation is a very significant aspect that affects employees' satisfaction and their retention within the organization. Although compensation is the very essence of any job, but it is also a major reason for employees' satisfaction. Compensation dissatisfaction can lead to a large number of individual as well as organizational problems such as grievances. Inadequate compensation is a significant cause of employee grievances. Aggrieved employees do not focus on their work, due to which their own performance as well as output deteriorates. Moreover, gender bias in compensation or inappropriate consideration to labor laws and Minimum Wages Act may lead the organization into legal complexities. Vandalism. Employees dissatisfied with their compensation indulge in unethical practices like stealing organization's property, using official resources for personal gains, damaging official equipment, and exhibiting uncooperative behavior. Poor health. Inadequate compensation develops unhappy employees that develop high mental stress, which leads to an unhealthy mind and body. This leads to increased costs of health care or insurance or sometimes even accidents. High turnover. In some cases, employees are paid less than what their position deserves. Owing to their skills, competencies, performance and position, such employees become dissatisfied with their compensation and start looking for greener pastures. This leads to high turnover, which affects the functioning and productivity of the organization. Lower corporate citizenship. Employees unhappy with the compensation practice, rude behavior with peers, disobedience of orders, low quality work, wastage of time, mutual fights, etc. Such acts proportionately affect the functioning of the organization. High absenteeism. Dissatisfied employees tend to take frequent leaves from workplace due to lack of interest in the organization. This creates a bad impact on the efficiency of the organization. Compensation is the major significant driver to employ and retain employees. It is also a critical factor that impacts the performance and output of an employee. Although, as discussed earlier too, compensation is an extrinsic motivator, but as it fulfills material wants of the employee, it definitely contributes to satisfaction and internal motivation. Studies have proven that intrinsic motivation decreases with decrease in extrinsic motivation. Skills and knowledge are main productive element of an employee, and these are the humans derived from job satisfaction, commitment and motivation, which in turn leads to a good performance. Motivation is a force that initiates behavior externally as well as internally. Even the best of talents cannot deliver to their full potential until and unless they are motivated. It is the employees who have the ultimate power to boost or reduce the profitability of the organization. Motivated employees can do wonders for attainment of organizational goals. Motivation can be either intentional or directional. Intentional motivation is when a person intends to work in a particular fashion, while directional means some deriving force that is drawing you toward attainment of a specific goal. Researchers have introduced various motivation theories. These theories are dependent upon needs, goals, job design, society, etc. They also depend upon the people on which they have to be implemented. This is the chart depicting the various motivational theories. The first theory is social learning theory. Within an organization, the employees learn exorbitantly from their organizational peers, culture, environment, managers, and so on. The core of social learning theory is self-efficiency. Self-efficiency is the concept that I can perform effectively in a specific situation. Such judgments influence our selection of tasks and goals, our extent of efforts, and the time stretch for which we will work. Another fact that influences our self-efficacy is the positive expectations that others have from us. That is, the fact that others believe about our high levels of performance motivates us to live up to their expectation. To conclude, high self-efficacy, employees work harder and better, give better results, so better is the organization performance. Operant conditioning. Behavior makes you learn. This type of learning is called operant conditioning. Behavior is affected by motivation from within and by reinforcement externally. This reinforcement includes compensation hikes, bonuses, promotion, praises, and awards. Goal setting theory. Every individual has one's own priorities, needs, personal values, skills, efficiencies, and perceptions. Motivation comes from his own identical goals. To achieve higher goals, one works harder and assumes higher compensation. The goal setting theory indicates that the efforts put in by an employee are undoubtedly a reflection of his seriousness and level of his goals. Job design theory precisely identifies the various kinds of tasks involved in completion of a job and the relationship of these tasks with the performance and satisfaction of the employee. In Japan, the variety of tasks, identity and significance of tasks, and their autonomy and feedback leads to psychological conditions which are directly related to internal motivation, quality of work performance, job satisfaction, decrease in absenteeism, and employee turnover. Expectancy refers to the belief of an individual that a particular result will be obtained if a specific behavior is followed. In other words, an employee perceives that if he or she exerts a particular level of effort in completing a task, a specified level of performance will be attained. That means effort and performance relationship. It proposes that employee compares his own efforts and rewards with others in similar work conditions. This theory strongly recommends that individuals who work for rewards are motivated by an urge to be treated equally at work. A key management role is the maintenance of this perception of employees about equity at workplace. One of the most well-known theories of motivation is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that was proposed by Abraham Maslow. The physiological needs are the most basic needs of an employee. Gradually, his level and status rises to safety and security. Once he is safe, he starts conceptualizing society, love, friendship, interaction, associations and affiliation. Then develops esteem for oneself as well as for other persons around. Finally, the state of self-actualization is acclaimed. This theory assumes that lower needs have to be satisfied first before going to the higher ones. Adlerfer-ERG theory. This theory reiterates the Maslow's need hierarchy, but it proposes relatedness and growth. Existence means needs related to food, air, water, pay, etc., which are necessary for existence of self and family. Relatedness means needs associated to meaningful interpersonal relationships. Growth refers to needs satisfied by an employee contributing towards the organization according to his knowledge and skills. To summarize, when one level of need is satisfied, one automatically starts progressing towards the satisfaction of next level of needs. Another aspect of this theory is that apart from satisfaction, progression rule, there is also a frustration regression process. If an employee is not able to satisfy or fulfill his needs, his frustration forces him to redirect his efforts towards exploring other ways to satisfy the lower order needs. So, compensation has to be motivating enough so as to retain the employee. McGregor's theory X and theory Y. People are inherently bad. This is McGregor's theory X. This pessimistic view assumes that generally people do not want to work on their own. They have to be forced, supervised and threatened. He believed that employees have no goals. They want to avoid responsibility and their major ambition is security. Theory X thus symbolizes the carrot and stick philosophy that rewards are to be combined with punishment to keep the employees motivated. On the contrary, theory Y believes that people are inherently good. This optimistic aspect of human behavior reflects that people naturally work just like they play or take rest. Employees' attitude towards work is dependent on their earlier job experience and the organization's existing work environment. If they can correlate their personal goal with organizational goals, they will automatically perform and will not be required to be forced or supervised or punished. As theory Y employees are already motivated, compensation only does the job of satisfying their material wants. Two-factor theory. Herzberg developed two sets of factors, motivators and hygiene factors. Motivators are intrinsic factors which consist of work, responsibility, growth, prospects, achievement and recognition. These factors cause happiness within an employee. All these factors are basically related to work. Hygiene factors, on the other hand, are not directly related to work but to surrounding conditions. They are also called as extra job factors, and they include organizational policies, peer supervisors, subordinates, working environment, personal life, living standard, and security of job. Theory Z. Theory Z, as formulated by Auchi, describes common characteristics of successful American and Japanese organizations. The theory believes that successful organizations tend to develop a lifetime bond with their employees. Even during slow times, employees are not laid off, and so employees feel tied towards the organization and work conscientiously and enthusiastically to achieve organizational goals. These kind of setup provides huge room for vertical and horizontal communication with strong trust among employee groups because all are working towards achievement of organizational goals. So, according to this theory, compensation is not a motivator of employees. To summarize the discussion, employees with positive intentions are highly motivated towards pay for their performance. Reinforcement says reward for good performance motivates employees. Difficult goals says tasks that aim at high and strategic goals should carry high compensation differentials to motivate employees to perform better. Skill development states organizations have to target multi-skilling in employees so that employees can improve their relative worth and productivity increases. Happy learning!